Welcome to the commentary booth, where we watch, and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator, Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by an impact feed technician who lists her favourite movie as A Nightmare on Elm Street and favourite TV show as Golden Girls. Welcome back to the show, Corrina Mabey.
Hello. How's it going?
Not too bad. Been a while since we've done these, since we did the little spin-off commentary booth live via satellite series.
Yes. Well, that's because I had the plague for like a week because the gremlin that I birthed gave it to me, and that's the joys of having a child is they go to school and then they come home with everything.
And then you shared it with me, and I was not good.
The fuck I shared it with you. You're 9,000 miles away. Get the fuck over it. Stop having the man flu.
Hey, you shared it with me through the phone, and then I was very sick one night.
One fucking night. I was sick for an entire fucking week, and I still have congestion, so go fuck yourself. Okay. I missed 3 days of work because my boss was just like, look, we love you, but we don't love your germs, so go the fuck home.
Whoa.
And I was like, yes, ma'am, say no more.
Okay, so this week we are pushing Corrina right outside her comfort zone as we try to remain quiet and refresh our minds and memories by revisiting A Quiet Place in preparation for A Quiet Place Day 1, which is due to release at the end of June. Excited for this one?
That was very rude. I know how to be quiet. I choose not to be quiet. Unless I'm in like a group of a lot of people.
You're American. None of you know how to be quiet.
I know how to be quiet until you're just like, here, Corrina, have this drink. And I'm like, yep, okay, let's do it. And then I'm not so quiet anymore. So, whatever. And no, this is not a drink.
Sips from her alcoholic beverage.
It's not a fucking alcoholic beverage. I haven't had like a drink in like over a week because I was sick. So what's the point of having a drink if you can't taste it?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So A Quiet Place, 2018 American post-apocalyptic horror film directed by John Krasinski. The film follows a family struggling to survive in a world where most of the humans have been killed by blind but noise-sensitive creatures. Starring Emily Blunt as the main female character, Evelyn Abbott, John Krasinski as Lee Abbott, and then their kids are Noah Jupe, Millicent Simmons, who is a deaf character, which is a very important part of the story, and then their third child, Cade Woodward. Before we dig into the movie in detail and recap and refresh our memories, when did you first watch A Quiet Place, and what did you think of the movie?
So when did The Quiet Place come out? Because I watched it, I feel like I watched it relatively close to when it was released originally. So whenever that was. Okay. So yeah, I've seen it before. I've seen it several times prior to us rewatching it. And I do remember that this was one of my more favorited modern day horror movies. Just because I appreciated the concept for it. That's, there's been a lot of post-apocalyptic shit coming out. There's like the Cloverleaf shit and, other things.
Cloverfield.
Whatever it was. See how much I actually gave a shit about it? I did not. It was not impressive, clearly. But yeah, we've seen a lot of
The first one was okay. The spin-off's not great.
Regardless, we've had a lot of things come out where it's like post-apocalyptic worlds or invasions of different organisms and stuff like that. And I feel like this one was kind of a more fresh take on that, especially with the creatures themselves being completely blind. So I did give them a lot of credit for that. I also loved Emily Blunt and John Krasinski. So they're both fantastic on screen and they have great chemistry anyway. So.
Well, they are married. So they had chemistry.
Well, I'm just saying, because sometimes, I don't know, I feel like some of these actors, when they get put into roles with their significant others, it's either really awkward or really well done. Like, they either don't want to play it up like, yeah, this is our normal daily lives, or they're fantastic. And yeah, they did really well together on screen. They, yeah, you know, and the kids are great. All three of the kids were fantastic.
Yep. And it probably helped that John was directing too, so it wasn't like they had someone else trying to impose what their relationship and how their interactions should be. Like, he knows how they react and interact with each other on the daily, so it wasn't like, oh, do this, and they're like, no, that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing felt forced. Everything was very fluid in this movie. It was just a really nice flow of everything between storyline and acting. It all really meshed together well.
And I think what made this movie stand out from a lot of the other stuff when it first came out was the sound design for this movie. Like, the whole movie is about being quiet and avoiding making noise and to prevent the monsters finding you. But like the way that they portray that with the sound direction for this movie, I think is really well done. And like, I wish I'd got to see it. I don't think I saw it in the cinemas. I'm pretty sure I just saw it at home after it came out.
Yeah.
And like, I've heard all the stories of people when like they were too afraid to like even eat their popcorn or dig into like the snacks and stuff that they had at the cinema because it was like so reliant on it being quiet in the cinema to watch this movie and like build that atmosphere and tension, and like the way the movie portrays that does that. So like, yeah, there was a lot of people apparently like felt really awkward eating popcorn or eating chips or lollies or stuff in the cinema because everyone looked at you like, shut the fuck up.
Right. I also have to give them a lot of credit for doing this fucking movie in bare feet. Like, walking around sets in bare feet, like, just, like, so fucking painful to me. Like, stepping on, like, the pathways with the gravel and stuff like that just did not sound like a fun time. And, like, obviously, like, some of it's, you know, edited or whatever, but I can't, like, imagine having to just go to work every day and just walk around in your bare feet. But I guess in Australia, that's kind of normal from what I've been told and what I've seen. Y'all walk around in bare feet like it's no big deal.
I was going to say, that's not that weird. It's fine.
Yeah, for you, it's not that weird. For me, it's like if you walk in, like we have signs everywhere, no shoes, no shirt, no service, but it's okay. You can bring a gun.
Yeah, no.
That's how we roll.
I've been into Woolies with no shoes on before.
That's fucking weird. Aren't you afraid of like picking something up on the ground? Like stepping in gum accidentally? Or what if someone like peed?
It's on my foot. It's not like it's going in my mouth.
That's fucking gross. That's how you get diseases. Or the ick. Anyway,
fair, I'd just been at the beach. I probably had the dirtiest feet in there.
Okay, touche. But yeah, no, regardless, it was a very, like, parts of it just seemed very uncomfortable from, like, a standpoint, even though, like, I am in Florida and the majority of people I know, like, walk around in their backyards with bare feet. I've never been that person. I've always been just, like, get me some flip-flops and call it a day.
Yeah. And they put sand down. Sand's nice to walk on bare feet.
Sand gets hot. But anyway, I looked very uncomfortable.
You're crazy, but yeah. But yeah, like I really enjoyed it, and it was nice to sort of go back and rewatch this ahead of the day one upcoming release, which I'm very excited about. As we dig into the movie, interesting that it sort of begins at day 89. It doesn't it left them open to go back and do this day one spin-off movie. So yeah, by beginning at day 89, following the invasion, we see this family desperate for sort of food and medicines going through the store at their small town. And as we sort of pan through, we immediately get a sense of how desperate everyone is because all of the shelves are empty, except for some very specific items. Like we see the little pill bottles, they're all still there because you pick those up and they're fucking noisy as. And bags of chips. Yeah, I noticed that like all of the food is stripped off, but the bags of chips are all still sitting there because it's like it's impossible to eat a bag of chips and not make some noise.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Like they definitely paid attention to detail. Like, you know, I feel like anybody could have gone.
It would have looked weird if everything was gone.
Yeah, like, oh, it's post-apocalyptic. Everyone just like fend for themselves, get everything you can off the shelves, like we normally see. But then, yeah, they definitely paid attention to detail and just left everything that could potentially be a risk is just there. And, they're very careful about like taking batteries out of things or trying to like not touch anything with stuff in it. Like, you just see them being extremely careful of how they do things. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Because like I'm sure if they could get the chips back to like their farm, like the compound that's like underground, they've got it all like paper mached and insulated, so they could probably open them safely in that room.
Yeah.
It's getting the chips back there.
Yeah, because you have
Is the
to,
issue.
have backpacks or whatever, so you have to figure out how the fuck am I going to carry this without it making any noise whatsoever. Like, it's just not going to happen. It'd be different if they were in like a box of crackers, sure, but
like literally just picking them up off the shelf is going to make so much
crinkle.
noise that they're going to come running at you, so you're screwed. But that opening sequence, it's been on Twitter a lot recently. The end of the opening 9-minute sequence before the title card. A very intense sequence that immediately sort of gives you the vibe of, this is a very dangerous place to live in, even though all we've seen so far are these 5 people.
Yeah.
But we see the youngest son, Cade Woodward, aka Bo Abbott in the movie, is wiped out by a creature because he decides to put batteries back into a space shuttle toy, which makes a crap ton of noise, and then one of the monsters comes screaming out of the bush and takes him out instantly. Like I said, been on Twitter a lot of people complaining, like, why was the kid this far back? It's like, because they've been living like this for nearly 3 months now.
Yeah.
Like, it's normal for them to all just walk along on this path in silence. They took the batteries out of that toy, so they thought it was safe.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just a little dumbass and picked them up and put them back in.
I mean, he's a little kid. Like, I feel like it's... I mean, yeah, obviously they know that they're not supposed to do that, but he's a little kid. Kids are going to get curious. He probably just misses being able to do like normal stuff or whatever. So I get the curiosity and stuff like that. And it's an extremely intense opening sequence. I almost forgot how intense it was. Like, in my head, I kept thinking that happened a little further on in the movie. And I was quickly reminded that it was not. So yeah, it was a little bit of an eye opener for me to rewatch this and just, oh, okay, yep, that's right.
They probably shouldn't have left him there and like left him with the opportunity to potentially take those batteries.
Yeah.
Take the batteries out, usher the kid out of the store. Like, let's go.
I feel like from a perspective of a parent, I feel like their system of order was not necessarily the best. I feel like you should have had like a parent in the front and the kids in the middle and then a parent in the back. And that's like generally a good idea, because if you have the youngest one in the back, like nothing's going to stop them from wandering off, especially when they're that little. Like, it was probably not the best idea.
Yeah. But it makes for a great opening sequence where you're like, oh, Jesus. And you sort of only get a real brief glimpse at the monster where you're like, what the heck is that thing? So it leads a lot of intrigue for the rest of the movie as well. So I really like that opening sequence.
Oh, yeah.
And on the next episode, we'll talk about A Quiet Place Part 2. I think the opening sequence of this one is much stronger than the opening sequence of the second one.
Yes. Honestly, like, I know we'll get into it, but I prefer Part 2 over Part 1.
As a whole?
As a whole, yes.
Okay, we're going to have some fights next week.
Woo! I'm ready. Let me get my gloves.
Are you a trading card collector or a fan of Australian pro wrestling? If so, you're not going to want to miss out on the limited edition Australian wrestling cards. Each set includes 50 packs of 10 cards, including some of the country's top wrestling talents like Robbie Eagles, Shane Haste, Madison Eagles, Hartley Jackson, and they have Shaza McKenzie listed, although she is not a favorite. The Velocities, and a lot more. There's wrestlers, referees, announcers, commentators that are featured, giving you a full appreciation of the Australian independent scene. The cards sold out a lot faster because cards are hot right now, I'll tell you. But you can order your Australian wrestling cards now at Pario Magazine. That's PARIO magazine.com.au/AUSWRES cards. Follow Australian Wrestling Cards on social media at AusResCards for updates. Join the hundreds of fans who have already discovered the excitement of Australian wrestling cards.
So then on this one, we then move in a time jump after the title sequence. We jump to day 472. So they've been...
We are a year and some change.
Yes, it's a long time to be living in this situation. They have we see their remote sort of farm compound with surveillance cameras everywhere. And I did love the idea of the fairy lights that they have set up that are like a warning system for like, if everything's fine, they're just a normal color. But if shit's going down, we turn them red.
Yeah, I really do appreciate that. Like, I like how they were able to formulate their own way of like kind of making like a system like with other people around them too, and how they, or at least, they're trying to see if they can communicate with people around them somehow. So they have that kind of connection, at least still, to somewhat of civilization, even though they're so isolated.
Yep. And it's here where we learn that the creatures are blind and attack via sound because of their highly developed hearing, and that they're armored when we see like a poster board thing with... No, it's a whiteboard, and they have like written down like, these are our goals, these are what we need to do, and these are the things that we've learnt about what these creatures are. Like they say that there's 3 that live in the area near the farm, and then their key goals are find food, medical supplies, and figure out a weakness for the creatures, because they are armored. They are impossible to kill just straight up. You can't just shoot them.
Yeah, they just kind of shrug it off. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing that you can tell that they've done like a lot of research, obviously, in that time frame that they've had. The dad has done everything in his power to gain as much knowledge as possible to keep his family alive and just keep going.
Especially because like we see all of the ways that they've learned to stay quiet in this universe and how to avoid being detected by the creatures. Like when they're walking back from town, they have this path of like sand that they walk on because they know it's not like leaves and leaf litter and sticks and stuff, so it's not going to crunch and make a noise. So that muffles their footsteps. And I also wrote down here on my notes, barefoot, the Aussie way.
Of course you did. I feel like they also, compared to some families that might be out there, because they are the only family that we're introduced to, I feel like they had an advantage, just for the sheer fact that their daughter was deaf. They were able to already communicate without having to make noise. So I feel like that gave them a big advantage, whereas other families had to adapt and learn how to do things without making sounds. So they did a good job of like showing how they've just perfected the ways of living, and just kind of, amplified how they had to communicate with everybody.
Yeah, the benefit of like having the deaf daughter, they had they could, or all of them could already use like sign language to communicate.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's also like a double-edged sword, because the Regan Abbott, who is the deaf girl played by Millicent Simmons, if it wasn't for her family, I feel like being deaf in this universe would almost be a death sentence, because you don't know what makes noise.
Yeah.
So, like, she might just be hungry and grab a bag of chips
and not realizing
that they're loud as fuck.
Mm-hmm. And she also, God forbid, if she was just walking and she didn't even realize that she like stepped on a stick or accidentally kicked a rock, like she'd never know something was behind her. So, I mean, yeah, she's like a sitting duck at that point.
Yeah, so it's a double-edged sword, because the benefit, they already know how to communicate, but then the downside is they have to really keep an eye on her to like help her and make sure like, no, don't touch that. That's noisy.
Yeah.
I wrote down some of the other ways that they stay quiet. When the kids are playing their board game back in the compound, instead of using like the metal tokens or the plastic tokens and tapping them across the board, they're using like little fabric discs.
Yep.
like little fabric tokens. I was like, that's a great idea. And they don't roll the dice on the board. They roll it on the side on a blanket.
Yeah, it's very smart.
Instead of serving their dinner on dinner plates, they're serving it on like little leaves
lettuce.
and bark things, like just so it's
Yeah.
like soft and quiet. So that's you're not sitting that on a table and it's going clink clink.
Yeah, it's almost like a really primitive way that they had to go back to living, you know, like how do we make things without actually like making any sound, you know, what can we use and what can we not use anymore? Because I'm sure there's a ton of shit that they were like, oh yeah, we could totally use that, and then partway through they go, oh no, wait, we can't do that anymore. You know,
like even when we see John Krasinski's character Lee like trying to wash his face and shave and stuff, that's just like a normal thing that you would do. You wouldn't think about it, but then they've had to adapt, and now they put the face cloth in the sink so that when the water hits the sink, it doesn't make a noise.
Yeah, it's little things like that that you would just never think about, like, ever. So it's a really interesting how they got everything across and didn't kind of fuck up anywhere, because there was a ton of room for error while making this movie and making it like super unbelievable in parts. So yeah, they did a really great job of
that. And then even when they're like walking through the farmhouse, they've painted little footstep spots on the hardwood floors that it's like, this is the safe spot to step. This part doesn't creak. Step here, step here.
Yep.
They've realized that they can, if they're sitting near the river or the waterfall, you can talk there and it's not an issue, because as long as there's ambient noise and you don't go above that level, you are safe.
Yeah.
So that's a very cool dynamic to have worked out.
It is, and you definitely get to see how the death of their brother really affects the kids specifically. Like you can see that the other brother has like PTSD. He doesn't want to go out anywhere. He just wants to stay in. Obviously the daughter blames herself and feels like the whole family kind of hates her because she's the one who gave him the batteries. And so it's really interesting to see how everything has affected the kids a year later. And the parents are kind of just, it's really weird that like they kind of, you don't really know how they feel towards each other, because, you know, she's pregnant in fucking a post-apocalyptic world. Like, no better time to have a fucking baby.
Especially a post-apocalyptic world where noise gets you killed.
Yeah. So they were like, hey, let's have a fucking baby.
Let's bring a creature into this world that doesn't know what you mean when you say shut the fuck up.
Yeah, so
and its only way to communicate that it's hungry is to scream.
Yeah, so aside from her being pregnant, like there's like moments in the movie where it looks like they're kind of standoffish against each other. Like they can't really tell if they really love each other or if it's just kind of like we're stuck with each other because it's like the end of the fucking world kind of moment.
Can't get a divorce now.
Yeah. So there's just like little moments here and there where you can tell it's definitely taken a toll on everybody in the family in different ways. But yeah, I don't feel like getting pregnant is the best
to like mourn properly.
Mm-hmm. Like it was kind of just like
shit, we got to keep moving forward. Yeah. Like nothing's happened.
Yeah, we can't cry. We can't do anything. There's nothing to bury at this point. So we just have to make sure that we don't die now.
Yep. Yeah, I thought that was a very bad idea. Let's have a baby.
Yeah, let's have a baby. Like, sounds like a great idea. Not to mention, you can't make any fucking noise. So when you're, stubbing your toe or, I don't know, stepping on things, you can't like scream. Like a nail going straight through your fucking foot while you're pregnant. You kind of can't scream.
Yep. You just gotta grin and bear it.
Yeah, no, none of that sounds good. And like none of that is like means for a yes, let's have a baby. None of it.
I did like that they somewhat pre-planned by building the soundproof baby crib box with the oxygen tank.
Yeah.
Like, what a weird situation to be like, oh yeah, so if we're gonna have this baby, we're gonna need to have a soundproof box that we can just shove the baby in.
Yeah, it's like a padded cell with an oxygen mask that you just lock your baby in. And it's like, all right, little one, like, go night night now. Just
Maybe they should make those in real life.
I mean, it might make for some, better night sleeps. I don't know.
Yeah, might also really fuck up your child.
That too. I mean, you never know. How were you raised? In a box?
Oh yeah, every night my parents would just put me in a box with an oxygen mask on and close the lid.
Here's a cute picture of little Todd sleeping. Isn't he so cute with his little mask?
It's just a box. Yeah. I did love like how much thought went into crafting this world. Like, I think that is also another reason this movie has become like so popular, because there is very few things where you can watch this movie and be like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Like, having a baby doesn't make the most sense, but I guess it happens.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So, yeah, you make do with what you have and make it work.
Yeah.
So then the movie progresses. We move to day 473, which we then learn by we see Evelyn looking at the calendar and like seeing where the due date and everything is. So we learn that day 473 is October 3rd, meaning the invasion started on June 17th, about 2 weeks before the July 4th celebrations, which then explains why they had so many fireworks at the farm.
Yep.
Later in the movie. Like, everything is so meticulously planned out in this, where it's not, I guess it's America. Everyone kind of has you can just get fireworks, so it's not that weird. But for them to have that many fireworks at the farm, there is a good explanation for that reason.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I've had a good amount of fireworks at my house before. We just like to blow shit up, okay? When it's Merca's birthday, we like to blow shit up. And around here in my area, they like to blow shit up for like 3 or 4 days at a time. It's great.
So we also learn now that Lee is some form of engineer, and he's like attempting to like fix Regan's cochlear implant hearing aid. And then in the process, they inadvertently discover that feedback seems to like hurt the creatures and make them freak out.
Yeah.
And later in the movie, we find out it's particularly powerful if you amplify that and blast it through speakers at full volume. Essentially, like, rips their head open.
It's nuts.
Exposing their soft insides and making them very vulnerable to just being shot in the face.
Yeah, it was so interesting. I was just talking to one of my coworkers about this movie, both of the movies in this, and we were comparing them to the way that Demogorgons in Stranger Things look when they like open up their heads. They look so similar. It's very interesting to see how creature designs have like carried over, and like you can see bits and pieces of different characters now in different shows and movies. I love it.
Yeah, and I thought it's a gross sight when you see its head like
plop
peeling
open
back, like,
or when you see like the inside of what there would be like their eardrum almost when it's like vibrating and stuff. It's very strange looking.
I like that. That's a cool shot though, where they give you like the close up of their ear and like really highlight like how big the ear hole is on this creature, like to really signify that, yeah, that's their only form of like
communication /
sense and location.
Yeah.
And they do like the weird clicking too. Like they use like echolocation as well, which is a bit concerning.
Strange. Yeah, it's really weird though, because you don't.
It's just a creepy way of locating.
It is, and with the creatures, it's kind of strange too, because you don't see them. Like, you know that there's multiples of them out there, but they don't seem like they necessarily have to hunt in packs. They seem very alpha, but like, I don't know. It's very strange. Like, I expected either one way or another. They were either going to be like solo creatures, or they were going to like hunt in packs. But these ones, it seems like they could go either way. Like, there's either one by itself, like a lone wolf, or they're together. It's very strange to me.
Yeah, I never got the sense that they were hunting like together. Like they weren't like communicating or anything.
Yeah,
like, I never got the sense that they were organized pack hunters. Like, I just got the sense that they're individuals, and because they just like swarm on sound, it just so happens that multiple come together at the same time.
Mm.
But then, have you seen the trailer for Day One?
I've seen bits and parts of it. I don't think I've actually sat all the way through and watched the entirety of it.
So there's a shot in that trailer where we see like a drone view of the city that's being invaded.
Mm-hmm.
And you see like a pack of them like scaling a building together, and that makes them look like they're pack hunting. But I think it's probably just the same thing where like
they hear one sound and they all
they've heard a noise high up in this building, and they've all just scaled the outside of this building. So it's probably that rather than them organized pack hunting. Because I don't know how they would communicate otherwise. Like, are there clicks like a language, or is it just purely echolocation?
Yeah, it's never really like explored or anything like that. Other than this movie did a phenomenal job of like scaring the crap out of like the audience as far as like sounds and immersing them into this world. But they never actually give like a backstory onto this invasion and why it happened or how it happened. It just happened. So I'm kind of interested to see with the Day One if they go into theory about what's going on. So we
I
can
think
get
that's
a better
why I'm most
understanding
excited about it.
Yeah, to get a better understanding of that, because it might explain a lot about how they communicate, if they are like a collective group of organisms, or if it's just like a random attack on shit.
Yeah, I want to see like why they came here, what the whole purpose of coming here was. Like, were they stumbled across Earth, or is like they intentionally coming here because of all the noises, or what?
Yeah.
And then I want to see like how that invasion plays out, and how society reacted to that. Like, how quick did it all just turn to shit, and everyone like, how long does it take people to realize, shut the fuck up and spread out, get away from other people that might make noise?
Yeah, because this definitely looks like a different environment. In the new trailer looks like a different environment in city than where A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Part 2 take place. I'm not sure if it is, but it looks like it's a completely different environment. So it's interesting to see how this is going to all connect together.
Like, I think they're both like northeast US, but I think this one is more like rural New York, and then Day One looks like it's like New York City. Kind
of like the way that The Walking Dead had them all like in the same generic area, but there were just different parts of the area coming together and stuff like that at points.
Yeah, and then The Walking Dead, was it The Ones Who Lived? Is that the spinoff?
I've never watched any of the spin-offs. I'll ask my mother.
Like, I think there was a spin-off that was LA, so that makes sense. Like, that was a totally different area of the States. So.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for that one to see how it goes and plugs in some of these holes that we're sort of speculating on and stuff like that. That'll be interesting. A couple of the other things I noticed when the action really picks up here on day 473, this is where the action is like the heaviest portion of action for the film. We get a lot of views of the creatures finally. And we see some of the ways that they combat the creatures and have figured out how they can sort of avoid detection with, we see Evelyn using an egg timer as like a diversion grenade, where she just sets it and tosses it in the side of a room and lets it go off, and then she bails out.
Yep.
Like we mentioned, the fairy lights, they turn those red to signal that there's some shit going down in the compound. A cool like idea, instead of having sirens which are going to draw even more in, it's like, here's a silent alarm.
Yeah.
And then the fireworks as well. They set the fireworks off in the field, which then immediately gets the creatures like, oh, go out that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. But it's really interesting to see how they really worked with their surroundings and stuff.
And it's a pretty tragic ending sequence too, with we see Lee, the father, sort of just standing out in the open field, realizing that the kids are being attacked in the ute. So he just stands up and just screams and basically sacrifices himself in order to draw the creatures away from the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then that sort of sets up the finale of the two powerful women, like the Evelyn and I keep forgetting her name, Regan.
Mm-hmm.
Like they finally go. Regan knows that if we use the sound, that freaks them out and hurts them. And then Evelyn is the one that takes the kill shot. And it's like, sets it up as these are two powerful women that are they're ready to fight back now. Like they've had enough. They're not going to be victims in this world anymore.
Yeah, I think Regan really shines through too. Her breaking moment for me, honestly, is when her brother falls into the silo, and she jumps in after, like essentially falls in after him. But like she's got the smart about her to like use this metal thing, hop on here, let's elevate ourselves, things like that. That scene gave me such anxiety too, like watching them like slowly drown in fucking corn or barley, whatever the fuck it was, like.
Grain silos are very dangerous.
Yeah, it's like quicksand, and I don't think a lot of people like realize that unless you've ever worked on a farm or seen them up close. But yeah, they are not something to mess with. And
Yeah,
that just gave me such anxiety.
Don't go straight up. You got to spread out.
Mm-hmm.
Spread yourself as much as possible.
Snow angel thing or whatever.
Yeah, like you're skydiving. Make yourself big.
Yeah, that was rough. And then I'll just leave it on the birthing sequence was extremely rough to watch as well. I can't.
Yeah, it's pretty full on.
I can't fathom doing that and not being able to fucking scream. Really, I mean, she does scream, which happens during the diversions and shit like that. But it's like, oof, you can feel her just like not being able to really let out what she needs to let out.
And I think that's why she does scream too. Like she hears the fireworks go off, so she's like,
"It's safe.
I don't have to hold in anymore. Like I can just let out."
Yeah,
and she does.
Yeah,
she really let go.
Yeah, it was rough.
One of the other key things I noticed too, we were mentioning like the score and the soundtrack and everything. It's like it's all a play on the noises, and it's very quiet at times. When we get Regan's perspective, it is totally silent.
Yeah, it's kind of eerie.
Like, she's deaf, so she can't hear anything. So none of you get to hear anything either, which is great.
Yeah,
makes it very eerie when it's from her perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we go through the whole movie, there is only one commercial song in here. There's no, all of the other music or sound score is just music made for the movie. But there is one commercial song, Harvest Moon by Neil Young.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. Like that would have been very much like pull you out of the moment if there was just pop song,
music,
right? Song, like right throughout it. Like that doesn't make sense when we're trying to establish that the only way to survive in here is to shut up.
Yeah, it was like I said, it's very well done. They did really well with just working with only sound effects and like that kind of anticipation of if I like move the wrong way, it's going to make a sound kind of moment.
Mm-hmm. And even dialogue wise, there is very few lines of dialogue. There are, in the entire movie, there are 25 lines of voice dialogue.
There you go. Well,
so the only way they really communicate throughout it is the sign language, which is subtitled for the audience. And I was reading that the initial plans were to not even subtitle that. They thought you would be able to get enough context from like what was happening and to sort of draw what they were saying. I think that would have been a bad idea because you would have missed a lot of like key moments.
Yeah, I feel like
you would have got the rough idea, but I don't think you would have got like the specifics of like the emotions and stuff that they're trying to get across.
Yeah, it would have been difficult. Like it would have been an interesting thing to kind of see them do, but I feel like it wouldn't have been well received.
Yeah. And then in terms of how the movie was shot, they filmed this in only 36 days, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
It's a pretty short amount of time for a movie. And that awesome opening sequence was the very last thing to be shot.
Oh, wow.
Because in the rest of the movie, John Krasinski has a beard. In that opening sequence, he had to shave.
He does not.
So they couldn't film that any earlier because he would have had to shave, and then that would have thrown the whole schedule out.
That's so interesting.
So
But
that he grew
again,
the
like,
beard out.
attention to detail, like fantastic timing on things and scheduling.
Yep. Grow the beard out, film all the movie, shave the beard, come back the next day, film that sequence.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
And yet, like I said, it was all that talk about like the idea of people were too afraid to eat and do anything in the cinema that would make noise, draw attention to them, was so impactful that the concession stand sales, which is a major income stream for movie theaters, were incredibly limited for this movie.
I can imagine.
Cinemas probably weren't the happiest about it. They were getting the ticket sale, but they weren't getting any extra income.
But yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, I love it.
And the budget for this one, $17 million. Box office earnings, $341 million worldwide.
So I'd say it worked well.
Well, it worked well enough to get a sequel and a spin-off and a third mainline sequel due out in 2025.
There we go.
So they obviously Paramount very happy with the outcome of this movie.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it'd be interesting. I think with all the success and all of the new stuff coming out for it, I feel like this is an opportune moment for Universal to heed what I'm saying, and put a Quiet Place house in Horror Nights next year. Because obviously
it's not a Universal movie. It's a Paramount movie.
I don't care. Get a fucking contract. I don't care. They have contracts with Netflix.
Where's Nickelodeon is Paramount.
Which was part of Universal.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, maybe.
I'm just saying it's a missed opportunity so far, because I feel like this would have been really fun to like try and like get through a house being fucking quiet. That'd be fucking awesome. I'm just saying, like, could you imagine trying to get through a fucking house and you're like, I gotta be fucking quiet?
Yeah, that'd be cool. And like they intended, like all the jump scares trying to make you scream, and if you scream, you get pulled out.
Something, yeah.
You don't get to finish the house unless you stay silent the whole time.
Yeah, see.
I guess the only issue is they would have to like probably get you to sign something before you went in, because like how when they jump out and scare you, they're not allowed to touch you.
Yeah.
You'd have to agree to that before you went in, of like, if they jump out and scare you and you make a noise, they are going to grab you and drag you out of there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like,
it'd be cool.
It'd be cool. Because
you would get people just lining back up and going again and again and again to see if they could make it the whole way through.
Yeah. It'd be fun.
You specifically would be lining up a lot.
I would be lining up. No, I would do it once and I would get through the house completely. And then I would not be sober anymore and I would be going through the house a lot.
There is no way you would make it through first go.
You don't know. You ain't never seen me at Horror Nights, but one of these years.
I've seen you in a haunted house.
That doesn't count.
You screamed and left me behind.
You deserved it.
You pushed me back towards the fucking monster and bailed.
For the record, you deserved it, and whatever.
You were like, fuck this. Last man standing, I'm out.
FYI, that was minimal compared to what I do at Horror Nights. So just be happy. I left my child behind last year. Nobody is safe for me. I fucking abandoned that child. So
yeah,
just saying, it'd be fun.
Nice.
I think it'd be it'd be a really cool concept to see if Universal could somehow get this in the works for maybe next year.
Yeah, I think 2025 would be the one to do it. Like,
absolutely,
the third Quiet Place Part 3. Like that would.
They could even they could literally like incorporate all three films together into one house, just like a Quiet Place trilogy or franchise, anything like that.
Yep. And apparently, there's a Quiet Place game being worked on as well. That'd be fun.
I'm intrigued.
So that is A Quiet Place Part. It's just a quiet. It's annoying.
It's just a Quiet Place.
They named the name. They changed the naming conventions when they made the sequel.
Yeah, because then it was like Quiet Place Part 2, and now they're just like, all right, well, Quiet Place Day 1 now.
I'm surprised they haven't gone back and like renamed A Quiet Place and made it. This
Part
is
1.
now officially A Quiet Place Part 1.
Yeah, that is kind of hard to do because although to be fair, they did that with Friday the 13th because the original Friday the 13th came out and then Friday the 13th Part 2 came out. So
Yeah.
it has happened. It's just kind of strange.
So yeah, this A Quiet Place. What do you give as a rating for the OG silent film?
I love A Quiet Place. It's like a high 4 for me, just because I like it a lot. There's not like a whole lot that I could say that I don't like about it, other than the fact that like there's no real storyline behind the invasion. But it's also because we started day 40, and so
We start at day 89, isn't it?
Or whatever day it is.
Yeah, day 89.
I was close.
Yeah, I gave this a 5. Like, just overall, like big picture stuff. It's incredibly well done. There's very like few errors in continuity and why are they eating this thing? Why are they picking that thing up? Like that's all really well done. The character development, the character portrayals, fantastic. Like every one of these characters, you feel something for.
Yes.
Marcus, you might not enjoy the most because he's a bit of a crybaby sad sack, but
he's a bit of a bitch.
Makes sense. Like he did watch his little brother get eaten right in front of him,
which should make him a hard ass, not a bitch.
Yeah, I suppose it made Regan a hard ass.
Yeah, look at her. She's a fucking badass.
But I guess that's a cool thing where you have that dynamic of what trauma can do to people. Like one person becomes really hardened and jaded and just not taking any shit. And then the other one just becomes incredibly fucked up and sad 100%. And scared of everything.
Yeah,
like, you see a lot of moments where like he steps on something, makes a little bit of noise. Even at the creek when his dad starts talking to him and he's fucking terrified. He panics. He's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it is. He definitely has like that PTSD moment, and it's just really interesting to see that portrayal.
So yeah, I gave it a 5. Like I thought this is phenomenal. Quiet Place Part 2, slightly different story. Hopefully, day 1 takes me back up to that level, and then Part 3 to close out the mainline story. I hope should be fantastic as well.
Maybe.
Alrighty, thank you for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow Corrina on Instagram at Miss Corrina Renee, and you can follow me on social media at Jamie Ups Media and at Pario Magazine. The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Ups Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Ups Media. The following people supported at the publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support.